Welcome to Beyond the Blacktop podcast, where we dive into all things OHV. I'm Kevin Schmidt, and here with me, as always, is Paul Hart. Paul, how you doing today?
Can't complain. Happy to be here.
Love to hear it. Today, we're going to be talking about some upcoming events. We don't have any update with the Red sticker program, unfortunately, that I thought we might have at the end of last episode. It's still the same as to where we're at. But our main story today is going to be speaking with the Bureau of Land Management managers and talking all about Glamis. We're going to talk about history, all that kind of stuff. But before any of that, Paul, you got promoted.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Compliance Unit Supervisor for the OHV Grants Program, and hopefully we'll be getting out in the field a bit more, checking on some of the good work that's happening. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. And getting out there on those trails, making sure that everything that's supposed to be happening is actually happening.
Yeah. It's important funds are used properly, and trail maintenance is very important to all our users out there. So it's very special to me as well, as I'm a rider, so I take it seriously.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the things that we hear about the most whenever we go to different events and things like that, is we're hearing about, the different trails people ride and whether or not they're being kept up, because they'll tell us if they go on a beautiful ride and everything looks pristine, or they'll definitely let us know if they're out on some trails and they're like, hey, this thing hasn't been logged out in months, or, I saw guys with a U-Haul throwing tires off a cliff, out in this area, things like that. So
yeah, we hear it all. That's for sure. But the trees, I'll tell you what, the trees in these burn areas are going to come down. So just be heads up, riders out there, for trees that are down next to the trail and the bushes and stuff. Just be careful out there.
yeah, and that also kind of brings us into we're coming into fire season. It's summer months here right now, and we got to be really aware of what we're doing with our vehicles, especially up in our forests and grasslands and places like that. Any hot catalytic converters, laying a bike down on some dry grass, not having a spark arrestor, all those things could cause a pretty major wildfire.
Absolutely. Those side-by-sides, they get pretty hot, so be very careful where you're parking them, especially if you're in tall brush or grass. They can cause fires, absolutely.
Definitely. All right, to start our news for the day, outside of those little things, with our Dishing on the Dirt, the last big event that happened that Paul and I both got to attend is the Prairie City Hangtown Motocross Classic. I believe it was their 56th year this year. Congrats to Hayden Deegan for winning the 250 class and Jet Lawrence for winning the 450. There was some pretty epic racing in the 450 class this year, though.
It was awesome. Moto 1, Eli Tomac, he put the hurt into him, and then Moto 2, he tucked the front end, and I bowed my head and started walking toward the truck. A little disappointed with that one, but I'm a huge Tomac fan.
Yeah.
Great racing, actually.
It was fantastic racing. I mean, Eli with the pass and Plessinger on the second to last lap of Moto 1 was awesome. It sounds like Plessinger kind of let up. He didn't realize what lap he was on, and I think that's probably just the heat getting to him. I mean, it was hot out there.
Yeah, it's typically, you do your moto and it's a +2, and he came across the line. He chopped the throttle, and that's when Eli caught up with him. So I think the heat, being 100+ degree temperatures, max heart rate, yeah, people are getting a little confused out there for sure.
Definitely. Quick shout out to my favorite moment from the race. It actually happened in Moto 2 of the 250, which was the privateer Lance Kobush saluting Deegan on the way past him up Mose. Thought that was pretty epic.
Yeah, it's not too often you see a privateer lead out like that and hold off one of the fastest 250s racers right now in the world. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that was awesome. And it was cool to see Deegan kind of give it back to him on his way past the next lap. But congrats on Lance for leading your first lap in a motocross race, and that was a lot of fun. It definitely was hot out there, so those guys were working hard for it.
Agreed, but I laugh a little bit. A few years ago, when I raced the Baja 500, at about mile 130, when I was racing Ironman, from 130 to probably give or take 250, it was over 100-degree weather. And the Baja 500 typically takes Ironman, faster people, maybe like 11, 12 hours. I came in around 15 hours. But yeah, 30-minute motos, 100-degree weather.
Hey, those,
They are running a little faster than me. Their heart rates are a little higher, but it's important to stay hydrated out there. And I felt for those guys racing because I've been
yeah.
there before and been delirious out in the hot sun. So it was cool to see.
Yeah, I was talking with the Honda Quadlock team, and they said they went through $400 of ice for their racers just for that one day.
And it wasn't ice for beverages. It was ice for trash cans. Literally, the guys will get in trash cans full of ice water to cool down after those motos because they are, 220 heart rates. And, yeah, they come in pretty hot.
They're coming in very hot. So it just something that if you didn't know is something that is definitely a challenge for those guys. I know that they shortened the Moto 2s by 5 minutes, I believe.
By 5 minutes,
Yeah.
yep.
And it makes sense as to why, because I don't know. I was standing out there and I was getting hot. I can't imagine having to do that kind of workout for a half an hour in the heat. So
I always say the weather is to be celebrated or ignored. So I'll just leave it at that. It wasn't cold out.
it wasn't, it wasn't cold. It wasn't wet.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day.
No, they weren't getting snowed on like you at was that the 400 or the
1,000?
You got
Yeah.
snowed on at the 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to bring up that's been in the news recently is there's been actually a couple of high-profile side-by-side accidents. Again, just a reminder that if you're going to be out riding around in your side-by-side, whether you're at your house, in your backyard, or you're out on Forest Service trails, or you're in one of our SVRAs, please make sure that at all times you're wearing your helmet, goggles, gloves, boots, all your protective equipment. All that PPE really matters and can make a difference in whether or not it saves your life. Additionally, I know that you want to give your kids experience riding and driving in side-by-sides. Oftentimes, side-by-sides aren't built to have smaller children in them, at least full-size ones. So, please make sure that if your child is riding in there, if they don't fit the vehicle restraints, don't have them in the side-by-side. Like, if they've got to be in a car seat or a booster seat, they shouldn't be in that side-by-side.
Yeah. And it's not always just like you, the driver. There's other obstacles out there, other side-by-sides, and getting hit and not being properly strapped in can be really, really bad.
Definitely. And lastly, just make sure that you drive at speeds that are safe for the conditions. If it's dark, you've got sharp corners that you can't see around, you've got crests of hills, slow down. Just, if you don't know, slower is better.
Yep.
Going fast can put you in the hospital if you're in an unfamiliar terrain. And I think that's it with my news. Paul, do we have any events going on in June or July?
Not a lot. It's summer break for racing typically. You will see the AMA National Motocross continue on throughout the summer. I encourage you to follow, all you listeners to follow along. The schedule's online. Additionally, there are always local motocross races and smaller motocross events that happen probably at nighttime throughout the summer. I didn't try to track down all of those, but you know what? They are out there. A lot of times these county fairs will have motocross types of races. But what I do have for AMA District 36, which is kind of Northern California, we have it at E Street in Marysville. There's a GP, and that's on July 26th. And then I know I talked with you about this, Kevin. Fast Fridays. Fast Fridays is speedway racing. It happens in Auburn, California, and it's actually where they hold the world championships for speedway racing. If you haven't ever been, you gotta go. It's something really cool to watch. The announcer is top notch. They do sidecar racing for one of the speedway events, and that's when they run backwards. It's not like NASCAR. They turn right sometimes in speedways, so it's not just lefts. It's a lot of fun. It's always kind of hot, but they have it at nighttime. And I recommend people checking it out if you're in the Sacramento area. It's worth the drive up to Auburn, and it's just entertaining. That's all I can say. It's super entertaining.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's flat track or is it like banked?
There's maybe a little slight bank, but it's not like a flat track race where, some of those mile tracks are coming into turn 1 or 4, maybe 120, 30, or even 140 like at DuQuoin. But this is pretty much you're turning the whole time you're on the bike. It's cool. It's really popular in Europe, and it's really popular in Auburn, California.
Hey, we'll take it.
It's cool. It's fun to watch. Other than that, District 37 and District 38, I didn't see any races on their schedule. Not to be surprised down in the desert areas. It's pretty
No.
darn hot to be racing, so no surprises there.
Yeah, I know our main story is about Glamis today, but I would recommend that you maybe stay out of the sand and the dunes during the summer and get back down there in the winter when it's actually manageable. 'Cause
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
think I think I saw the weather report down there for last week when I was looking up Hangtown temperatures, and I think it was like 110 down there. And it's only going to get hotter. So
Yeah.
I know during the summers it'll be mid 120s, which is not safe for you or your vehicle. So
No.
stay out of it.
Yeah. For events, I don't have a ton more, but I think it's worth mentioning since I mentioned it a few other times on some earlier podcasts. But the International 6-Day Enduro is happening this year in Italy. A couple people I know are going, but I'll go ahead and give shout outs to everybody in California who's going. And first one, World Trophy Team, that's the fastest people. We have Dante Oliveira. He's from Hollister, and I don't know if you noticed, Kevin, but he's an off-road racer. He got, I think, 20th or 21st overall at Hangtown.
Did he?
Yeah, so
I did not notice that. No.
he's one of the shouldn't say few, but there aren't very many people that can do both. Ryan Sipes rings a bell. He got first overall at 6-Day Enduro. He used to race Supercross, so there are a few racers out there that can do both, but to do it at that level, it's pretty cool. His brother, Mateo Oliveira, also from Hollister, he's on the junior trophy team. So that's people that are under the age of 25 are able to race junior trophy team. And then for the club teams, that's more for your normal, like local district racers. There's districts all across the U.S. So these club teams get put together through qualifiers. But we got two local guys from Grass Valley that I ride with. Anson Maloney, he's been to 6-Day. I think this is his 5th time. He got 1 silver and 4 golds, or 3 golds already. I went with him in 2019 to Portugal. He got a gold medal there. And then Lane Lorenzo, it's his first time going. Ava Silvestri, she's from Redwood City, super fast on the bike. I wish I had half her skills. And Ashley Gage, she doesn't live in California, but she trained with Anson a while back, and I rode with her quite a bit. And it's just super cool to see her going for her first time as well. I wish all those riders the best of luck, and they're going to represent Team USA well. I know it.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to hear about the like kind of logistics of getting their bikes over there and getting all their setups going over there, because it's not easy to. I mean, it's hard for the motocross teams that are just in the U.S. traveling around the U.S. I can't imagine trying to get a bike overseas set up the way that you want it for the race and the conditions for that race. That's got to be really difficult.
It's really difficult. You get a shipping container in your box, and everything that you want to take has to fit in it. And a lot of times what guys will do, maybe not the faster people, they'll rent a bike, but they'll bring their forks and shock with them on the airplane over.
They're just packing it in the carry-on?
Yeah, well, you have to check bags and stuff. I'm sure you have to drain the oil, or you might get lucky and not have to. But it's a really big ordeal, and you have to plan well in advance. And to have a race bike away from you or rent one for such a big competition so far in advance has got to be tough on the riders, I can only imagine. But you show up, everyone's kind of got the same deal going on. It's super cool to watch them unload those bikes and start putting them together.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then go race for 6 days. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We are now on to our main story today, which I'm playfully calling Enter Sandman, the story of Glamis. But with us here today, we have a couple of people. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves and what you do, starting with Neil.
Hi guys, this is Neil Hamada. I work for the BLM, and I'm currently in the position of the Off-Highway Vehicle Travel and Transportation Management Lead for the BLM in the California State Office.
Awesome. And Mike?
Hey everybody, my name is Mike Carpenter. I'm the Law Enforcement Chief for the Bureau of Land Management in El Centro, California.
And last but not least, Zach.
Good afternoon. I'm Zach Latta. I'm the Assistant Field Manager for Recreation in the El Centro Field Office.
Essentially what you're hearing here are 3 people who know Glamis like the back of their hands. Would you guys mind giving us kind of a quick history of the dunes? Like, why are they here? How'd they get there? They're kind of in the middle of nowhere. How did sand get out there in the first place?
So I'll take that one. I'm sure most of the listeners have heard of the Colorado River, which meanders down through the southwest United States. And it starts really with that. And the water traveled down from Colorado all the way to the Gulf of California and carved the Grand Canyon. When it flowed into, before dams, it flowed into the ocean, but it also sometimes flowed into the Salton Sink, which was called the Lake Cahuilla area. So, it flowed back and forth between the ocean and the lake and deposited all of the sand and the material from the river, which, the sand could be from Colorado and the Grand Canyon. But when it finally was controlled, the river was controlled and dammed up, the Salton Sea area, or the Lake Cahuilla, which was the prehistoric lake, dried up. And when it dried up, the prevailing winds came from the northwest to the southeast. And so it blew those lakeshore sands into the southeasterly direction and built the Imperial Sand Dunes. So if you take a look at a map, you'll see that Salton Sea is northwest of Imperial Sand Dunes because that's where the lowest portion of Lake Cahuilla used to be. I think the last time it was full was about 400 or 500 years ago. The dunes then blew up or blew into the dunes that we need today and move in a southeasterly direction about a foot a year on average. So right now they're about 40 miles long, about 5 miles wide.
So eventually they'll end up in Arizona?
In Mexico.
Oh, they'll end up in Mexico.
I think they're kind of already there because I ride on both sides of the border, but yes, they will continue south.
Yeah, they already extend about 2 to 3 miles, down below the border.
Yep.
Oh, it'll be a sad day when they're not Californian anymore.
Well, at a foot a year, it'll be a long time.
It'll take a bit.
Hey, Neil, I got to give you some credit. You guys do a good job managing that, and we'll get a whole lot into that. But I've been on the other side in Baja California and riding, and it's a bit of a free-for-all. I know it can be as well at Imperial Sand Dunes, but just want to say good job.
Appreciate that. I can't take all the credit for that because Mike and his team there are a big reason why it's the family-oriented place it is now.
Definitely. Thank you guys all so much. So we've got a lake, we've got dunes, or we've got a dried up lake, kind of, although the Salton Sea is still there. We've got dunes that are being formed from these sands that are blown across California and eventually end up into Mexico. When did people really first discover the dunes? And how did people end up kind of riding out there?
Well, I guess discovering the dunes, I guess I would probably start with the Native Americans were living in that area. They were the Quetzal tribe were there. I think records date back to about 1000 AD in that Colorado River corridor. And then, more in the modern history, in 1775, Juan Bautista de Anza did his Spanish exploration, came just south, actually had to go around the dunes. The dunes were a barrier. Came around the south side of the dunes to move northwards up to California and settled California. I think the, modern commercial history starts when the railroad comes through, really. I think it was around 1877.
How does a railroad get through sand dunes?
Well, it doesn't actually go through. It skirts the northeastern edge of the dunes, so it's right on the edge. Close enough to cause problems for the trains, but not through the dunes. So it skirts the edge of the dunes between Yuma and Los Angeles. And that's actually how Glamis got its name. The railroad workers who were building the line at the time had to put in stops for the steam engines. And there was water stops. I forget, it's every 20 miles or so. And that water stop was called Glamis, what we call Glamis today, or Glamis, because it was named after a Scottish castle, which still exists today. I think the Scottish castle was built in 1300 or so.
Huh.
Cool.
All right.
Super cool.
I had no idea. And so we get this little town named Glamis, but in all reality, these are what we call the Imperial Sand Dunes, correct?
Yeah, I believe BLM called it the Imperial Dunes. Actually, let me back up. So the dunes are known by a lot of different names, actually. So some people refer to it as the Algodones Dunes, which it means cotton. So Algodones Dunes, Imperial Sand Dunes, Glamis Sand Dunes. People in Yuma, in Arizona, call it the Yuma Dunes, Buttercup, Oglebay, Gecko. So depending upon who you talk to, it's referred to by a lot of names. The agency refers to it as Imperial Sand Dunes, and Imperial Sand Dunes encompasses all of those places. And so when you see government documents, you'll see them refer to the Imperial Sand Dunes when we're referring to the whole dune system.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right. And so we've got the railroad going through. They should have tried paddle tires, is what I'm thinking. We got people out there. They start recreating. I'm assuming this is kind of like a lot of the off-highway vehicle stories in California, which is that World War II happens, and then there's a bunch of Jeeps everywhere, and then people start modifying them to the extreme. Is that kind of what happens here, and starts exploring further and further out?
That and I think motorcyclists really started riding out there like in the 60s a bunch, like recreationalists as well.
Yeah, very, very similar. Maybe a little twist to that because of the railroad. So because of the railroad stop there, Glamis developed as a small town. There was a post office, a school, and I was lucky enough to be able to get my hands on a copy of this little pamphlet I'll hold up here called Glamis Sandhill Schoolhouse to Dune Buggies. And it talks about the history of Glamis. And in it, the school teacher writes about her life out there at Glamis and a lot of the dates of, when things were occurring. And she recorded in there around 1940, the store owners built, at that time, the Allens built their first dune buggy with a Model T Ford by doubling up the rear wheels.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Try to, and it was built out of necessity. They wanted to drill a water well, and that well was going to be in a valley about a mile from their location. I think it was in the wilderness area that we have today. And so in order to get their well drilling equipment out there, they had to build something. And so that's what they built. But like you said, the end of World War II changed things a lot. But I think for Glamis, really, in I think 1960, Highway 78 was built, which bisected the Imperial Sand Dunes. It went right through Glamis, as you guys know today.
Mm-hmm.
And that really opened up the Imperial Sand Dunes for off-highway vehicle recreation. That's when you start to see the VW buggies, or the old tunnel buggies. I don't know if you guys know what tunnel buggies are, the old Volkswagen and frames.
That's not something I'm familiar with.
Or Pans had what referred to as a tunnel going down the middle to stiffen the frame. So around that time, you start seeing, the dune buggy culture start to grow.
Okay. And when did BLM kind of take over management of the dunes?
I believe that, first management plan to actively manage development was written in 72-ish or early 70s timeframe, when they decided, recreation and visitation is occurring at a level where, some planning needs to occur.
Gotcha. Okay. And so we now have people out in the dunes and people riding around. What does that look like today? How many different types of off-highway vehicles are getting used out there? What are the number of people that you're seeing? All that kind of stuff.
Man, when you asked me about this, doing this podcast, I started looking into that and started jotting down some notes. And as time progressed, we saw the change of off-highway vehicle popularities change with current types of vehicles. So like in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, we saw the ATCs, right? The three-wheel off-highway vehicles. I don't know. I used to ride one. You guys probably did too.
Raise your hand if you've been hurt on a three-wheeler.
If you ran your leg over with a three-wheeler.
If you rolled a three-wheeler,
Yeah,
raise your hand.
yeah. If you don't have your hand raised, you never rid one.
And I reminded myself about the Honda Odyssey and Pilot, which to me in my mind is like kind of like the first UTVs.
Yeah.
They weren't side by side. They were single seaters, but they're really the first UTVs.
Yeah.
That was back in mid 80s or so. Then in roughly the mid 90s to late 90s, we start seeing some of the long travel buggies that we see out there today. You know, the suspension technology just starts to really shoot through the roof. 2004, we see the Yamaha Rhino, and preceding that, just for a couple of years, what were golf carts, right? All the homemade modified golf carts, which then turned into the Rhinos from Yamaha. And then subsequent to that, 2008, Polaris comes out with the Razor, which kind of, significant change in off-highway vehicle history with the side-by-sides.
Yeah, definitely.
So you see over the years, technology really changing, types of vehicles changing, and I'm curious to find out, what the next off-highway vehicle is going to be.
Any ideas, Paul?
I've always wondered why they don't put bigger wheels on motorcycles.
I mean, mountain bikes are running what, like 28, 29-inch rims
I
nowadays?
joke when I say that because it'd be hard to touch the ground. But yeah, it would come in handy in some Baja whoops having a little bigger wheel.
I'm sure.
But we'll see. Hover bikes, I think, is the next thing.
Ooh, I like that. Hover bikes on the dunes, that'd be good. And
and I didn't mention dirt bikes. I mean, the dirt bikes through the entire history is like the one constant vehicle that has remained out there. At one point, dirt bikes and ATCs were the most popular vehicle ridden in the dunes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of seems to be the theme everywhere, is that Jeeps and dirt bikes will kind of live forever and everything else kind of comes in waves, right?
Seems that way.
Side-by-sides seem to not be going anywhere, though.
They seem to be, they're quite sticky right now.
We had a 2008 Polaris in Florida. I worked down there for the Forest Service, and I knew then, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to change the sport. And they have not went away since 2008.
No, they're just getting bigger and badder.
Yep.
So I guess that kind of leads to my next question, which is, you've got all these vehicles out there. How many people are you guys, Michael, how many people are you seeing in the park on any given weekend, on just like an average weekend, not a holiday weekend?
So an average weekend, we're getting anywhere from 25 to 45,000 people throughout the dunes.
That's amazing. And on a holiday weekend, say like Thanksgiving, when I know everybody is out with their family riding.
Yeah, so Thanksgiving we can get close to 150,000.
What's your biggest challenge on a busy weekend like that, just for our audience here?
So it's just everything. So we're basically are setting up a city. Yeah, it's everything. So without us organizing it, a city is developing in the middle of nowhere that is larger than the cities that surround it.
Mm-hmm.
So just the sheer mass people that are coming into the community, and then trying to manage that from a emergency management standpoint between EMS, LE, and just getting everybody along. And then you throw in the machines on top of it, and it's just a whole nother aspect. Yeah, it's really everything is kind of what we're dealing with on those weekends, those big ones.
So just for frame of reference for everybody, 150,000 people is about 2.5 times the size of the largest city in Wyoming, which is a state. So, they're dealing with double the amount of people as the largest city in a state coming into their area for, 4 days and then disappearing.
For about 6 months out of the year as well.
Yeah.
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 It's not a small amount. So with all that, you guys, obviously you're having to provide every service on the planet down there. You're having to do everything from 911 calls to all the way down to, like picking up trash. How many medical call outs are you guys getting during those kind of 6 months of the year where people are actually down there?
So I don't remember the exact number on our big holiday weekends. I mean, we can get in a 4-day time on a really bad weekend, 90 medical calls in 4 days. We've I remember one New Year's, we ran Southern California out of helicopters. We couldn't find a helicopter in Southern California to transport people. So we were using ambulances to go all the way to Palm Springs. So
And
that's a nonstop. And like I said, it seems like on some weekends we're perfectly calm, nothing happens, and then just some weekends it's just for whatever reason really rough.
For the audience, what's some word of advice for them to not end up one of those stats for getting a helicopter ride or a ambulance ride? Not, we're not joking about this. It happens a lot, but it's serious, and we want to try to keep people safe. So if you have any words of advice, it'd be great to
No,
hear.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're out there for. It's obviously it's a dangerous sport, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just it's unfortunate, just a part of the sport. But my biggest piece of advice is just know your limits. Don't push them past what you know. It seems, especially once COVID hit, we saw a whole different crowd come, and that's when we saw some really high influxes in medicals, just because they were new to the sport and they see other people take these hills and do all this cool stuff. And hey, I can do that. I'm in this side by side. It drives like a car. It's not the same when it's off road. So, my biggest piece of advice is just know your limits. Don't push them past where you're comfortable, and then have a plan when you go into these rides. And then obviously one of the biggest things is avoid alcohol, drugs while you're operating these machines, and wear your helmets and your safety seatbelts. It's unfortunate. We've had some serious accidents, some fatalities where I remember one where two people survived. They were with no injuries. They were buckled in a sandrail. And then the two front seat passengers both unfortunately passed away because they weren't wearing a seatbelt. So just that safety equipment's there for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't harp enough to use it.
Yeah, definitely. I know that it's something that we actually talked about to actually begin this episode. There's been a couple of higher profile side by side deaths up north here recently that have happened due to either lack of safety equipment or not doing things the right way. And, I also know from my experience down there in Glamis going to a couple events, I've had people walk up to me and tell me that they don't like wearing their helmet or their seatbelt while they're in their side by side because it's uncomfortable. But that just sounds like a really good way to get hurt.
Yeah, and that's where we're at. We really hound and we really do heavy enforcement on the safety stuff, the helmets especially. In these side by sides, for whatever reason, people say, "Hey, I'm comfortable. I don't need to wear one." No, you really need to wear one. Previous example, it's the unknown, and the amount of people we see that are saved by helmets, seatbelts, and using them properly is big.
Yeah, definitely. You said you saw kind of an uptick in users with COVID. I think that's one thing that we noticed as well, is that really brought a lot of new people into this sport that maybe hadn't been around it before and didn't have that kind of like generational knowledge being passed down from, parent to child over time to make sure to do those kind of correct practices. So it's definitely been a challenge, I think, for all of us to try and figure out how to reach out to those people and get them up to speed on, what's the right way to kind of go about being in this activity, this hobby.
And I'm sure some of it too that you guys see is like the trail etiquette, even though it's not really, it's trail, it's open area, but like how to behave around others, because I'm sure you're dealing with head-ons and side collisions, and that can be modified by or be reduced by proper trail etiquette or have proper spotters. And yeah, it's a team effort, and it's just a shame to see people get hurt.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, but like Kevin said, it's awesome what this whole new user group has discovered the sport and is embracing it. But at the same time, when you do try something new, you need to research it and make sure you understand the rules, the regs, and then just the operating, how you operate these machines with the other people, especially on these big holiday weekends when you have 50,000 people driving to one area to go watch the sand drags, or 50,000 people punching into Oldsmobile Hill. With all these people, if you don't know the rules of the off-road community, you're kind of at a loss.
Yeah, definitely. You did mention though that, this is a big draw for these new users. Why do you think the dunes of all places are such a draw for off-highway vehicle users?
Not to sound weird, but they are super magical. There's just nothing like them in the U.S. The sheer size and scope of them, the ability to see so many different things, from having a bonfire in the summer at nighttime to staying warm, to being in a tank top during the day trying to stay cool on the exact same day. And then with the especially with the Glamis Sand Dunes, with the mountains to the north and the west, or sorry, the east, just the sun hitting those it's just picturesque. And then you got Neil's background on the screen right now as the sun setting. You sit up on Sunset Hill, and it's truly magical. It's a really unique experience, and it's an awesome location where you can set up that wagon circle with the RVs and have a really cool family event with friends and family. And there's just I don't think there's anywhere else in California especially that can touch it, and it's just such a unique experience. It's got to be experienced by everybody.
Neil, what makes it so special for you?
Man, that's a good one. The Mike, I think, hit it on the head. There's nothing else like it. And I try to explain it to folks that aren't off-highway vehicle folks, and it's hard for them to understand because OHV people tend to all get put into one category, but there's a lot of niches. And, us motorheads, we understand, you got the duning community, you got the hard desert community, you got trials riders, motocross riders, supercross riders. Everybody's doing a little bit of different thing. Rock crawling. Duning is just another kind of off-highway vehicle recreation opportunity that's different from the rest. The riding, as far as the riding goes, I try to explain it to non-riders like, if you like riding a roller coaster, this is a roller coaster except you're driving. You control it, and you can hit high speeds and get G outs that will produce enough G's to push your chin to your chest and you're struggling to keep your head up to look forward, or be going extremely fast down sand highways, between the South Dunes and North Dunes. Or I know a lot of folks like what they call a wilderness experience, and will go out into the deep dunes, what we call the deep dunes, so they get away from everybody. And you can go out there on a weekend and ride in the deep dunes to places where you will not see another track or another person for miles. And so some folks like that experience. So at Glamis, you could get all those kinds of experience, from that wilderness experience to the sand drags like Mike was talking about, to Oldsmobile Hill, the camping experience with family and friends. Have a line of your best buddies in front and behind you going on a dune ride and taking breaks at the top of points like Sunset Hill in my background. There's no other place like that.
I love hearing that. You guys both have mentioned the sand drags now. Are we talking like drag strip, like quarter-mile drag strip in the sand?
Yeah,
well,
basically.
Yeah,
Kinda.
except it's impromptu. It's not managed. So there are historical points of interest that happen in different places in the dunes at different times of the day.
Okay.
And just based on history and what people do, and they've changed over time. Sunset Hill is something that's fairly new in the last 10 years. The sand drags that we mentioned have moved around the dunes to different locations. I've been to sand drags in several different locations during my time growing up riding out at Glamis. So, people congregate at Oldsmobile Hill during the day. It used to be Competition Hill. So there's just things move around and they change over time.
So it kind of sounds like there's a lot of different fairly famous places in and around Glamis itself. You've mentioned obviously sand drags. Sunset Hill, Oldsmobile Hill. Are are these kind of like some of the larger kind of legends of the area in terms of like the famous places?
Yeah, like for instance, Oldsmobile Hill, the legend is that the first dune buggy to ever make it to the top of Oldsmobile Hill had an Oldsmobile water pumper motor in it. So a water pumper meaning a water cooled V8.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line of hills, and we have them numbered and named: Competition Hill, Oldsmobile Hill, Brawley Slide, Lizard Hill, China Wall, the Wall. I don't know how all of them got their names, but except for Oldsmobile and Competition Hill, because that is historically where a lot of the racing used to occur up dune face.
That's awesome. How high is Oldsmobile Hill, man?
You know, for bottom to top height, there are a lot bigger dunes. So you're talking maybe 400 feet runs. So not too high. Sand Mountain, Nevada, Dumont Dunes, Idaho, the Idaho Dunes, St. Anthony,
Mm-hmm.
they all have bigger faces, like dune faces where you could do a straight run, and steeper as well. I think what sets the Imperial Sand Dunes aside is the sheer size of it. You know, just 40 miles long, 5 miles wide. There's no other location with that much riding opportunity. 125,000 acres of open riding area.
I mean, that's massive. I know from my experience with one of our SVRAs, Ocotillo Wells, that SVRA is, I think, like 80,000 acres, just over 80,000 acres. And that one takes me, 3.5 hours, 4 hours in a side-by-side just to get across that. So, you're talking much more than that to get all the way from the top to the bottom on those dunes.
Yeah, and like, with it being so large, a lot of the famous like the car racers, they will train out there to get used to the empty quarter in Saudi Arabia for the sand dunes days that they race there, because there's nowhere else like it in the world unless you go to Saudi Arabia or down to South America and some of those dunes. So it's special for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. It's unbelievable how big it is.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. So there are some other like rumored places that I've heard about inside the dunes, and I wanted to ask you guys about them. Is there a buried tank out there in the dunes? I've always kind of heard that legend that there's a tank buried out there.
If there was, we couldn't tell you about it. You want to take that one, Mike?
There is apparently some out there. So General Patton did his testing with his troops for World War II out here. There's still some historic tracks kind of north of the dunes that are preserved in some areas. But there is legends that there is a tanks buried out here. We have discovered some unexploded ordnances in the past tied to General Patton out there. But yeah, there is that rumor. I haven't seen it yet.
All right.
But like Neil said, if we did, we couldn't tell you. So,
all right. How about the drinking fountain that works in the middle of the dunes?
That's not a rumor. That's true.
Oh, that is true.
But it's not there anymore.
Okay.
It was on a piece of private land out in the dunes, and a college professor put it out there. I'm not exactly sure why, but he put it out there and he put a water tank in, and he mounted a standard size drinking fountain on top of it, battery operated, and when you push the button, water came out.
That's awesome.
And then, so it was out there for a few years. I actually have a picture of my friends around it, but I don't think it's there anymore. I think he took it out.
All right. And then lastly, I heard there's a buried wagon circle, potentially.
I've heard that one as well, but never seen it either. There are some other items out in the dunes related to World War II, spread across the dunes, that are pretty interesting. Sometimes you can find them, sometimes they're buried, and just like portions of the Plank Road that goes through the southern part of the dunes.
What is the Plank Road?
The Plank Road is an old wooden road that was built in, I think the first version of it was 1915 by Colonel Ed Fletcher. There's a whole story behind it, but basically it was a competition to find a trade route, what the best trade route would be to Phoenix. So would it be from San Diego to Phoenix, or would it be from LA to Phoenix? And so San Diego and LA were a competition to find that so they could, have trade with Phoenix.
Gotcha. And then they hit a giant pile of sand and didn't know what to do other than lay some wood down.
Well, they laid planks down, so they built a couple different roads. The first one, they laid planks down kind of like train tracks. And then the second one, they actually laid planks down lengthwise, right next to each other, all the way across the dunes.
That's impressive. I feel like it would get buried really fast, though.
They had a system for moving the road when it got buried or scraping the road.
Interesting. All right, cool. Not lastly, there are a couple other things I wanted to talk about, considering legends out at Glamis Sand Dunes. I know that it has been a very popular place for different movie series to go out. What movies have you had filmed out there at Glamis Sand Dunes?
Go ahead, Neil.
Okay. Well, let's see. I think the most recent big movie was probably Jumanji with The Rock, Kevin Hart, and a few more. I can't remember the other actresses' names. That was filmed off of Gecko Road, just east of Pad 2. And it was the scene, one of the actresses, it's Jack Black, is laying down on the sand, and he's kind of like having a tantrum. That scene is right there. I was driving by watching.
That's awesome.
And probably the most famous one is Return of the Jedi. That was filmed down in Buttercup, which is near the Mexican border. And that was filmed in 1982. So if you've seen Return of the Jedi, where, Luke Skywalker has to walk the plank off of the floating Jabba the Hutt barge, and then they're threatening to push him into, I think it's the Sarlacc pit with the worm that eats people that fall off. You're
telling me the Sarlacc pit is in Glamis?
Yep. Don't ride your side-by-side into it.
Was Spaceballs filmed at Glamis?
I don't know if Spaceballs was or not. Do you know, Mike?
I don't know about it. I haven't heard that one being filmed there.
I just kind of joking because we're talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
So when I was working there was a film project almost every week, some kind of commercial, photography, or movie going on all the time. I'm sure folks there in El Centro are still dealing with that. There's so many to name, like there's just a ton. Our local film commission was helping us manage that because it was such a high workload.
That's crazy. So speaking of filming things, I know that there's been a lot of famous people that have kind of come out to Glamis that have kind of made their name filming themselves, especially in the motocross world. Is that, like, how much has that affected not only the sport, but Glamis's reputation?
I mean, I can rattle off some names. I know growing up in the Midwest, I heard about Glamis before I ever moved to California because of the stuff that professional motorcyclists were doing out at Glamis. For the audience of people that you definitely ring a bell, Jeremy McGrath, Jeff Emming, Brian Deegan, Seth Inslow, Colby Raha, Axel Hodges, Ronnie Renner, Twitch, the Hill Brothers. All of those are either professional motocross, supercross racers or professional freestyle motocrossers. Early on, like the Krusty Demons of Dirt video series, that's where I heard about Glamis. And there's a really famous crash that I showed Kevin of Seth Inslow just straight sending it off a dune. And he had never ridden a bike with a paddle tire. And he overshot a jump massively. But it's definitely been on the motorcyclist community radar for years and years, and it's shaped a lot of professional athletes' careers just from being out there at those dunes. And the cool thing at the dunes, it's a canvas that always changes, so you can make your own lines, you can create your own playground out there, which is what makes it so cool to me.
I think Paul hit the nail on the head. That I think the biggest impact was like around 2004, 5, right as we were hitting the maximum number of visitors we've ever had. And with Krusty coming out, and then Felony Films, were they made a business out of filming dumb things happening at the dunes.
That sounds
they
like our
made a
sport.
business out of it and became millionaires, but it prompted a lot of people to come out and see the craziness, and visitation just went through the roof. It just spiked, and our recreation area started to change, and we were on the front page of the New York Times as the most illegal place in America. And we had to really work hard to change that, mainly for our duning community. The folks that have been going there for generations wanted us to change things back to a family environment, and that's how we started taking a real more active and proactive management stance about off-highway vehicle safety, visitor safety, and Mike and his team of law enforcement officers there are part of the outcome of that.
Definitely. So I want to ask Mike and Zach this. If you had like one safety tip that you wanted people to kind of take away or know before going to the dunes, what would that be?
Like I said earlier, it's know your equipment, know your limits, and come prepared. That's, I think, if you can achieve that right there, you should be able to have a safe weekend.
And Zach?
I have some friends that have maybe done it before and know the area pretty well, and they can show you around. I would not go out there with nothing but newbies your first time. I would want to ride with somebody that had been out there before, just so you can build that experience slowly.
So a buddy system, never go alone kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that can also always kind of be a general safety message anywhere.
Absolutely, and I say those same things for people coming with me, wherever, the desert, the trail, the forest, and also another thing I tell people, don't go any faster than you want to crash and hit the ground. Like, I've used that reference for years. Like, don't go any faster than you want to crash and hit the ground. And if you use that rule of thumb, you'll be pretty safe typically.
So everybody's so friendly for the most part that if you are coming out and it is your first time out here, just talk to your neighboring camp. I mean, they're more than willing to probably show you around and help you guide and navigate.
Yeah, your campsite neighbors can always be big helps. Lastly, one thing that I wanted to talk about is I know that you guys have a fee down there to go ride. I know that there's a lot of places in California where it's open free riding, but I know that you guys have a fee. What is it?
So it's actually going to change for next season. The season pass is going to be $185, and that's good October to April. If you buy your weekly pass on site, that's $70. But if you buy that weekly pass off site before you get here at a gas station, convenience store, OHV shop, it's $55.
Gotcha. So if you're going to go more than, say, 3 times in a year, it's probably best to buy a season pass.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to jump on that, the reason we charge the fees is we're providing the trash service. We got really good bathrooms spread throughout there. And then one of the big components of that fee program is the EMS staff. They're paid out of that in OHV grants. And that's how they're rescuing people and saving people's lives out there, is through those fees and through the OHV grants as well.
And it sounds like, if you're running Southern California out of medical helicopters, you kind of really need to have those people out there.
Yeah, they're really good at their job. If I was to be injured, that's who I want coming to rescue me and to work on me. But they're really good at their job. They have really good equipment to be able to do their job. But with that comes a fee, unfortunately, and that's part of what that fee is there to pay for.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It's the one thing I think everyone in this sport is always looking for. I mean, it's why Paul has a job with our grants team and all that, is that, the money kind of helps make the sport go round, right?
Yeah, you guys do an awesome job with the grant funding, providing needed services, and $185 for a season pass. Like, how much are lift tickets to go skiing? 180 a day.
Yeah.
It's a bargain. I always like to think like hobbies are associated to money. So if you have a hobby, it's going to cost sometimes. And I think that's a good price for a season pass to have that kind of access to these types of dunes. It's pretty cool.
Definitely. If people want more information about this fee increase, is there a place where they can go to kind of find that?
Yeah, so they can look on the BLM California site and then the specifically El Centro, and it's all tied in there into our business plan we did last year.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, all three of you, very much. We appreciate your time on here. We're going to go into our last section now, community connections, and you're welcome to stay on here and provide feedback if you have any. But otherwise, thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Going into community connections, this is an opportunity for people to kind of ask us questions so that we can get them answers. And today's question, really for Paul, I think because you've had to do this how many times in your life, but it's this person powder coated the frame of their bike, but they accidentally covered up the VIN number. How do they fix this / go about re-registering their bike, making sure that it's legal?
Yeah, you're going to have to make a trip to the DMV. The DMV is always helpful. You just got to ask the right questions, bring the right paperwork with you, and have the machine with you. So you're going to need to get some forms for a specially constructed or modified vehicle registration. Essentially, that means you painted your frame and you can't see the VIN anymore. With that, there's a Reg Form 343 and Reg Form 5036 that you're going to need to fill out. Take those with you, or you can get them at the DMV or get them online. You're going to need to do a VIN verification. They can do that at the DMV. CHP can do it as well. You're going to need to show some type of proof of ownership. That may be a bill of sale. And you're also going to need to apply for a title. A statement of construction if it's a new constructed frame, and a bill of sale, that receipt as well. So it's a process. It's kind of similar process for an out-of-state vehicle into California. I have bought a lot of bikes from out of state for racing just because I was on a budget, not because I couldn't buy one in California, and had to jump through those same types of hoops, if you want to call it that, at the DMV. But I always got what I needed at the end of the day. It may have been a couple trips to the DMV, but that was my fault for not having the proper stuff with me. So do your research, and it's important to get these things registered. As Kevin mentioned, the OHV funds come for registration, and it helps places like Klamath, Imperial Sand Dunes operate. So go to your local DMV and ask the right questions.
Definitely. Well, this has been the Beyond the Blacktop podcast, brought to you by California State Parks. If you have a question you would like answered on a future episode, please reach out to us on Facebook at California State Parks Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Recreation Division, on Instagram at CA State Parks OHV, or email us at ohvinfo@parks.ca.gov with the subject Beyond the Blacktop. This podcast is copyrighted by California State Parks. No part of this podcast may be reproduced or distributed without the written permission of California State Parks, its districts, or divisions.